It's 6 a.m., and the aroma of freshly brewed coffee wafts through the air. You're standing in line, waiting for that mispronounced name to be called for your order with that familiar green logo on your cup to appear. But as you look around, something feels different. The once-packed cafe is oddly quiet. The barista seems stressed, and that $5 latte suddenly feels a lot heavier in your hand. Welcome to Starbucks in 2024, where the coffee giant that once seemed unstoppable is now facing its biggest challenge yet. But how did we get here? How did a small Seattle coffee shop become a global phenomenon, only to find itself struggling to keep up with changing times? Let's find out. But before we do, thank you for joining Foodie Insights, and don't forget to hit the subscribe button and let us know what you think may have happened in the comment section.
If you hold off on your morning coffee because it has to be Starbucks, consider the Starbucks bean for the perfect cup at home.
Chapter 1. From Beans to Billions. The year is 1971, and in the heart of Seattle's Pike Place Market, a small coffee shop opens its doors. Its name, Starbucks. Founded by Jerry Baldwin, Zev Siegel, and Gordon Bowker, this humble store was initially just a place to buy high-quality coffee beans and equipment. However, the real story of Starbucks, as we know it today, begins in 1981 when marketing director Howard Schultz walked into the picture. Schultz, inspired by the coffee houses of Italy, saw something the founders didn't: the potential for Starbucks to be more than just a retailer. He envisioned a place where people could gather, relax, and enjoy premium coffee in a welcoming atmosphere. In 1987, Schultz, along with local investors, returned and purchased Starbucks from its original founders for $3.8 million. That's when things really started percolating. Schultz's vision was simple. He wanted to create a third place between home and work where people could connect over coffee. He introduced the concept of the barista, bringing a touch of European cafe culture to American land. Under Schultz's leadership, Starbucks began its rapid expansion. By 1989, it had 55 stores and was roasting over 2 million pounds of coffee annually. The 1990s saw Starbucks expand at an astonishing rate. They were opening a new store every workday, spreading across the United States like a caffeinated wildfire. Alone in 1992, Starbucks completed its initial public offering with a revenue of $73.5 million and a market value of $271 million. By 1996, they had ventured into their first international market, Japan, marking the beginning of their global domination. Just 4 years later, by the start of the new millennium, Starbucks became more than a coffee shop. It was a widespread espresso phenomenon. With over 3,500 stores worldwide and a stock price that had shot up faster than a caffeine buzz, Starbucks seemed unstoppable. But as we all know, what goes up must come down. And for Starbucks, that descent was inevitably decaffeinating. Chapter 2. The Bitter Taste of Success. As Starbucks entered the new millennium, it was riding high on its own success. But sometimes, too much of a good thing can lead to a crash. Starbucks continued its aggressive expansion in the early 2000s. By 2005, they were opening approximately 6 new stores every day. You couldn't walk a block in any major city without bumping into that familiar green siren logo. The green siren logo became a status symbol, luring customers into their stores, and carrying a Starbucks cup was as much a fashion statement as it was a beverage choice. But this rapid growth came at a cost. The once unique Starbucks experience was becoming, well, a little too common. In 2006, the company had over 12,000 stores worldwide and was serving 40 million customers per week. Soon after, Starbucks branched out into music, movies, and even a partnership with William Morris to scout for entertainment purposes. They were no longer just a coffee company. They were trying to become a lifestyle brand. Then came 2008, and with it came the global financial crisis. Suddenly, that $5 latte didn't seem so important anymore. The company, whose revenue grew from $4.1 billion in 2003 to $10.4 billion in 2008, was now falling down. In January 2008, Starbucks' stock price had fallen to half of what it had been a year earlier. The company announced it would be closing 600 underperforming stores in the US and cutting up to 12,000 jobs. The once unstoppable coffee giant was starting to look, well, pretty stoppable. Howard Schultz, who had stepped down as CEO in 2000, came back to try and rightfully unstrain the company. Chapter 3: The Grand Comeback. Schultz's return marked the beginning of what he called the transformation agenda. It was time for Starbucks to remember what made it special in the first place: the coffee and the experience. Next, Schultz turned his attention to what was happening inside the stores. Remember that day when every Starbucks in America was closed for barista retraining? That's when things became serious. Starbucks was serious about getting back to the basics and putting the star back into their bucks. But Schultz also knew that in the fast-paced world of retail, no movement meant no growth. So, while Starbucks was refocusing on instructing its members and improving its main menu, it was also innovating other products and inventing different techniques to perk its decaffeinated community. In 2009, they launched VIA Instant Coffee, bringing the Starbucks experience to homes and offices. By 2011, VIA Ready Brew had surpassed $135 million in international sales. They also started experimenting with store designs, moving away from the cookie-cutter approach and creating spaces that reflected local communities. But as any coffee lover knows, when you stir too many things at once, there are always more challenges brewing. Chapter 4: Starbucks struggled to stay relevant. The next struggle was due to consumer tastes evolving. Cold drinks, once a small part of Starbucks' menu, were becoming increasingly popular. By 2018, they accounted for more than 50% of Starbucks beverage sales. The company had to adapt, and fast. Another struggle was the increasingly important convenience of order pickup and delivery through mobile in consumers' lives. To address this, Starbucks opened many new small stores in various locations, mainly in urban areas including Portland and New York City. Then came 2020, and with it came a challenge that no one could have predicted: the global COVID-19 pandemic. Suddenly, that third place between home and work that Starbucks had cultivated for decades was off-limits. People were working from home, avoiding public spaces, and definitely not lingering in coffee shops. Starbucks had to pivot and pivot hard. They accelerated their plans for pickup-only stores. They revamped their app to make mobile ordering even easier. And they leaned heavily into their drive-thru business, which became a lifeline during lockdowns. But even as Starbucks adapted to the new normal, cracks were beginning to show. The pandemic has exposed and exacerbated issues. The company temporarily closed more than 2,000 stores in the US and Canada. Despite these efforts, Starbucks faced growing labor issues. In December 2021, a Starbucks store in Buffalo, New York, became the first company-owned location to unionize. This sparked a wave of unionization efforts across the country. It also grappled with rising costs and pricing pressures. The company implemented 3 price increases between October 2021 and August 2022, citing inflation and supply chain challenges. However, these price hikes risked alienating cost-conscious consumers, especially as economic uncertainty grew. Chapter 5: The Struggle of 2024. As we step into 2024, the aroma of coffee at Starbucks is mingling with an unmistakable scent of uncertainty. The green siren, once a luring symbol of consistency and quality, is facing murky bean waters. First, we have the union issue. What started as a small ripple in Buffalo, New York, has turned into a chaotic wave. As of 2024, over 400 Starbucks stores have voted to unionize. It's a movement that's forcing the company to reckon with issues of fair wages, better working conditions, and more consistent scheduling. In the first quarter of 2024, Starbucks reported its first decline in U.S. sales in over a decade. We're not talking about a small dip here. This was a significant 3% drop in same-store sales. But it wasn't just the sales figures causing headaches in the Starbucks headquarters. Customer traffic was down by a whopping 7%. That's millions of fewer visits to Starbucks stores across the country. The company's stock price, which had been a darling of Wall Street for years, tumbled by over 15% since the start of the year. Fast food giants like McDonald's and Dunkin' are stepping up their coffee game. In 2024, as inflation continues to squeeze household budgets, that $2 McCafe is looking a lot more attractive than a $5 Starbucks latte. Perhaps the biggest challenge facing Starbucks in 2024 is figuring out its identity. What exactly is Starbucks trying to be? Is it a third place between home and work where people can linger and connect? Or is it just another drive-through option for busy commuters? In trying to be a lot of things to everyone, Starbucks risks becoming nothing to anyone. So, what do you think? Is Starbucks losing its value or not? Let us know in the comments section below, and don't forget to subscribe. We look forward to seeing you join us in the next video.